Ted Cruz and his wife Heidi were at an Italian restaurant near the Capitol in DC, and they were met with some activists, and the situation escalated quickly. Let's take a look.
We believe survivors. We believe survivors. We believe survivors. We believe survivors. We believe survivors.
Beto is way hotter than you do.
We believe survivors.
We believe survivors.
God bless you. We believe survivors.
God bless you.
Excuse me. Let my wife through.
We believe survivors.
Forgotten you.
We believe survivors. 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 Sexist, racist, anti-gay. We believe survivors. We believe survivors. We believe survivors.
Leave the premises. It's a private space.
He forgot to validate. And by the way, now he protects his wife?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
Right? When Trump's attacking her, he bowed his head. So we might have a debate on our hands on this issue because I don't think we agree necessarily. But just so you know, he did try to stay at the restaurant in the beginning when they were just asking him questions. But when the chanting began, that's when he started to run for the hills, which is his trademark.
So just in case, it was difficult to understand what they were chanting and what this whole protest was about, it started with one of the protesters asking, from what I gather politely, how he plans on voting in the whole Brett Kavanaugh confirmation. And then they started chanting, "We believe the survivors," as you can hear in that video. And so, yeah, look, some people are uncomfortable with it because they believe that this is another example of Americans being uncivil and that we should be polite to one another. But here's the thing, I would buy that argument if it weren't so one-sided, because we're dealing with lawmakers and specifically a president who go out of their way to be uncivil toward the voters, toward the American people. They do it through policy, they do it through rhetoric. And so the only part of this that makes me uncomfortable is he's with his wife. She's not a politician, and it makes me uncomfortable to see her harassed. If he were alone, it would be perfect, and I'd have no problem with it whatsoever.
I mean, what kind of country do we live in when the Zodiac killer can't just have a peaceful dinner with his wife?
His father's a Zodiac killer.
Yeah.
No, he's a Zodiac killer.
Oh.
His father killed Kennedy.
Oh, that's right, okay.
He's just trying to have a civil dinner with his wife before he goes and votes to jam through a sexual assaulting Supreme Court nominee. I mean, what kind of country?
Yeah, okay, so I hear you guys, and I'm actually gonna connect this to money in politics, and I'll tell you how.
Of course you are.
But then I'm gonna vote no. Okay, so if you suppress the people long enough, they're eventually going to burst out like this. So they don't care about their voters at all. And I don't mean Republicans, I mean the whole system. They all take donor money and they all do exactly what the donors ask, and then they expect you to bow your head politely and just take your beating. And the fact that we're run by a bunch of oligarchs now. And the perfect example of that is Ted Cruz, because Ted Cruz had the Mercers who had given him $13 million in the Republican primaries. You're telling me he wasn't bought by the Mercers? Well, if you're told, don't say that, because I'm about to prove you wrong. So he then goes into the Trump convention and says, I'm not endorsing Trump, right? So then he goes to, same exact night, right after the speech, he goes up to the suite that the Mercers have at the top of the convention, which of course they do, right? Because they have now switched and they're now backing Donald Trump because he won the nomination. And the Mercers slammed the door in his face. That's why he then went and phone banked for Donald Trump. And the guy who said, oh, he insulted my wife and he insulted my dad and he's a sniveling coward and I'm gonna go get him, etc., said, oh, the donors told me not to, so I'm just now gonna bow my head. And he's pathetic. And so this is the voters getting frustrated and saying, well, damn it, if you're not gonna listen to my votes, so you're at least gonna listen to my voice, right? So I completely empathize for all those reasons, but I am worried that it's gonna get out of hand. And so I think that if we start, especially with family, but even not family, I mean, so we're doing it to Republicans, they're gonna do it to Democrats, and we're okay with it now because Ted Cruz is a Zodiac killer and he's one of the worst guys. Even a conservative columnist today wrote, or recently wrote a column saying he's like a serpent covered in Vaseline. Right? And it's him, that's Ted Cruz. But be careful, if you say it's okay to do it to Ted Cruz, how are you gonna feel if they do it to Elizabeth Warren?
Well, I'm curious, like, what would that chant sound like? Like, how dare you stand up for women? How dare you stand up for women?
We don't believe consumers. We don't want to protect consumers. Right. Like, is that what it's going to be? I mean,
stop trying to stop unpoisoning the water. Stop unpoisoning the water. Like, what do you? I don't.
That's such a good point.
I could see them doing it. I'm just curious of what.
No, but you know how the right wing's gonna go. They're gonna start chanting Pocahontas.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna have any boundaries. And so look, we're gonna ask you guys, tyt.com/poll, should activists yell at political figures in restaurants? And so obviously you'll have yes and no as the options there. Again, I'm super curious. We asked you guys about whether Dr. Blasey Ford should testify, and I didn't know which way you were gonna go, and 80% of you said yes, she should testify, even though she's gonna be subjected to these probably unfair questions, et cetera. But in this case, I'm still too uncomfortable with it. You wanna ask him questions, like the questions they asked on his way in. Are you supporting Kavanaugh? You're a citizen, you can ask anybody any questions.
Right.
I think once they sit down, surrounding them, and chanting, I don't know, it makes me uncomfortable.
No. I think the way that they handled it was fine. Again, I wish his wife wasn't there, but come on, I'm so tired of being held at a different standard. We're always held at a different standard, okay? Like, there's one tiny protest of a conservative speaker at any event, and people are like, oh my God, free speech. The right wing loses its mind, right? So in this case, it's free speech. This is politically protected speech, okay? I don't agree with people protesting on college campuses and preventing others from speaking if they disagree with them. And I disagree with those who disagree with or criticize what the protesters did here. They are voicing their opinion, and you're right, people are angry, they're frustrated, and conventional methods of getting through to these politicians has not worked. I just have to get that out.
I hear you guys. So it's right now 2-1. Let's see how the rest of the voting goes. And I am amused by your chant ideas. For Bernie, I guess it would be like, don't give us healthcare. Don't give us healthcare.
Let me be sick. Let me be sick. I want to die. It's my right.
Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below, and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.